And good morning, and welcome to good morning, good evening, and welcome to the Dusty Feet. It's been a long day for me. Been trying to close a house and been at the place, and they're still working on it. So it's been an interesting challenge. It has definitely been a challenge to my character, and I have a post-it note here. Actually, I just noticed earlier. It says, your fracture is showing. And I think a couple of times this move, my fracture occasionally has shown when I've don't intend it to. So that falls on me. That falls on my behavior on this. So that said, welcome to the 16th, right? It's the 16th and part 3, wrapping up to judge or not to judge. Cool. And so this will hand on a lighter note and gives us some cool stuff to think about, which I enjoy. So we'll catch Mackie 7 do that as we enjoy doing that. So again, reminder to subscribe, click the bell icon. That always is handy. Dusty Feet's going to have all of our other prior episodes, which are all kept on YouTube, which is the whole point, right? And then for Twitter, we're at TheDustyFeet too. If you need updates on things as we go, especially the end of the year here, just the way this next couple weeks are going to play out. That's going to be the place to find out what we're doing as we go from week to week. Yes. So what's probably going to happen is this move is eventually going to take place. So next week we're going to be off because we'll be transitioning. We won't have any internet, or the internet will be, I don't know what it'll be at this point next week. So it's going to be probably at least that week, maybe the next, hopefully not. That gets us to later towards the end of the month. And then that point will actually, the intention is to have our special guest that I talked about, long-time listener, first-time caller, and we'll have that, which I'm excited about. That's been fun. We've been having some nice discussions about where we'd like to go with this, so it'll be fun to do, and it's exciting for you to see as us to have some fun with, which will be cool. So that'll be part of fun, because, and as always, the Dusty Feet. This is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God, interconnection of His creation, where belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. So here we go on the Dusty Feet. So, part 3. We'll wrap up this series. It's been an interesting one. The other two have been, like Mackie likes to call it, gut punches on how we want to, how it appears that Yeshua, what Jesus is telling us He expects as behavior from His kingdom people, right? And how that fits in the context of what He's going to expect from His kingdom going forward, especially from there. And very challenging, and very it really makes you look at yourself and look at a bunch of things. So let's play the last clip from the video. We'll wrap up with this third clip. And then we'll talk, and then there's another little one that I want to talk about, which I'm kind of excited about. It'll be fun to see. I'm looking forward to getting engaged in it. So let's check that. So let's first start by watching this last clip with Tim Mackie, Matthew, to judge or not to judge.
And instead of assuming that we're in a position, I think our proper English word to describe what James is describing, what Jesus is saying, is about condemning. It's about assuming that we know what this person is about and why they do the things that they do. And Jesus is saying, just assume that this is an inappropriate posture for you, and assume that you've got issues to deal with that are way more serious than this other person. Which doesn't mean that you never have the conversation. What it means is that it forces you to go into the heart of the gospel yourself and walk away changed from that experience. Because if reality is not me and Jesus, and then this person with a line between us, it means that the reality is this, like I'm on this side of the line, and Jesus is there. And how do I, before Jesus, deal with this log, right? This telephone pole that's in my eye? How on earth do I get this thing out of my head, right? It's heavier than my whole body. Like, how do I get it out? How do I get it out of there? And Jesus just assumes, in the light of all of his teachings and in everything that's about to happen, that we know what that entails. Like, how do you do this? And it's very simple. It takes you to the heart of the gospel. That I come to Jesus. I'm not over here. I'm here before Jesus. And I'm a disciple of Jesus with a whole community of people. And by definition, to become a disciple of Jesus means acknowledging something about myself. It means making a confession and an acknowledgement. I am a kind of person who's in desperate need of God's grace that comes to me through Jesus. I have serious issues. I've got a stinking telephone pole in my eye, I have serious issues. And I come before Jesus, and I listen to him talk, and I read the stories about how he treats people who have telephone poles in their eyes. And I look at how he lived his life for me, and he died for me, and he was raised for me. And by his Spirit, he's present and real for me. And this is precisely what Jesus does not do to me. I mean, Jesus is actually the only one qualified to do this. And this is exactly what Jesus does not do to you or to me. And it's that experience of being a disciple of Jesus and coming to that realization that, like, Jesus doesn't condemn me for this massive issue that I have that just compromises my motives, it compromises my sight and my ability to even see other people for who they really are. He doesn't condemn me. He loves me, and he gave his life, he gave his death, and he gives his resurrection life for me. And when I go there first, that experience has the capacity to utterly change a human being, to utterly change a human being. And you guys, when we gather, every Sunday, right now, in this moment, when we gather, we actually are telling that story together. So imagine with me, imagine a scenario where it's a Sunday gathering and imagine you're at church. And imagine that for many of us, what would be like your nightmare scenario coming true. And that is that our secrets, right? We're all coming in here with logs in our eyes, specks, logs, and everything in between. And some of them are known to other people. Probably the most significant ones that we're most ashamed of or that we most regret aren't known to anybody or are known to very few number of people. And just imagine a scenario where somehow, in some way, your secret becomes known to everybody in the room, just like that. And for some of us, to even envision that, we start to sweat, It's so uncomfortable to think of a scenario where these things that I guard because my self-worth would be at stake, I would be exposed, the true parts of my character that I'm not proud of, they would go public, and everybody would know who I really am and what I really do. And that would be a nightmare, right? I would run as fast as I possibly could if that were to happen. But here's the reality, and this is the reality that Jesus invites us to, based off of what he said happens when we gather here. We believe that Jesus is real. We're a community of Jesus' disciples. We believe that he's real, and that if he actually, what he said was true, is that he's present in a unique way, in a significant, unique way when his disciples gather. There's something that happens. And Jesus drew attention to that in his teachings. Wherever there's more than 3 of us together, he's here in a unique and significant way. And the reality is that when we gather, when we're gathered at this very moment, when we walk in here and we're together, our secrets are actually known. Your nightmare's true. Your secrets are known. You read the stories about Jesus, and people would come up to him with a question or a petition, a request. People came up trying to challenge him, or they're just in crisis. And you guys, if you know the stories, they're so powerful. Jesus, he just read their mail. He just knew them. He knew he could say things. He just knew them. He knew everything about them. That's the Jesus that we encounter. That's the Jesus who we believe is present here. And so call it a nightmare, call it a dream. I'm not sure. But the reality, if I really believe in Jesus and we're disciples and we're gathered here, my secrets are known. They're known every single time that we gather to Jesus. Not necessarily people sitting next to you, but to Jesus. They're known. And we come around this confession and this hope that it's precisely the Jesus whom all of that is totally transparent and totally known to. And he actually is the one who's qualified to do this about us and our behavior. And this is exactly what Jesus does not do. He does not do this. Jesus never treated people. The only people that Jesus actually leaned into were extremely judgmental religious people. That's who he did this to, right? But the people who are coming to him and just open-handed with their crisis, with their need, with not knowing what to do, absolute grace and compassion. And that is good news for people like you and like me. Amen? And so here we are. We're at a Sunday gathering. And so let me just enact what's going to happen in the next half an hour here, right? Is that we're here, and we have these things called the tables that are around the room. And so we're down here, and we come over. Let's say you're going to come to this table. And right here, the moment you step right here, this is a big advertisement that you're making to everybody in the room. And so no one's going to come up here. After this one, I'll go to the back tables, right? But this, like you're not just attending an event here. We are participating in an announcement and a reality when we gather. To stand up here is to say, I'm a disciple of Jesus, and I'm moving towards Jesus and what he did for me in his body, his life that was lived for me, in his broken body and shed blood, his death that was for me, and in the hope of his resurrection life that's given as a gift to me. And to stand up and come to the table is to make an announcement to everybody from the back of my head or something to say, I need this. Hey, everybody, I have a huge beam in my eye. I need this. I actually, my life is so shot, I actually need someone else's life to count for mine, right? Because I've blown this one. And I've got serious issues. And my hope is this man who is God become human, to be the kind of human that I've been called and created to be but have failed to be. And out of utter mercy and grace, Jesus offers his life, his death, his resurrection to me. And to go to the tables is to make an announcement to everybody. I've got a beam in my eye. I need to deal with it. And I'm actually incapable of dealing with it, but Jesus is capable. And all of us announce this truth when we get up to take the bread and the cup every single week. And to announce that truth to each other every single week, that before Jesus, who knows our secrets, we don't face this, we face utter grace and forgiveness and a gift in exchange. That reality denies me the right to ever think that I am on this side of the line and it's me of Jesus against some other person. But instead, this is the posture that the gospel puts us in. It's me and you as disciples of Jesus, and we look to Jesus as the one who meets us in our most dark place of brokenness and shame and regret. And with his life-giving love and power, he meets us there and promises to make us new. And when I allow Jesus to deal with the telephone pole in my eye, that changes a human being. The presence and the power of the gospel of Jesus' grace can utterly change a human being if you let it. And it utterly changes the dynamic in a community of Jesus' disciples, because all of a sudden, it creates an environment where we're not like over against each other. we're with each other. And notice that this parable of Jesus doesn't end with both people like walking away, never having a difficult conversation. But rather, in this changed environment of a community of the gospel, it creates the space for us to have difficult conversations with each other. Because the most difficult word has already been said. Right? So I've already just acknowledged that I have secrets and things that I'm ashamed of, and they're all known to Jesus. So we're all gonna say it in a little bit when we get up and go to those tables. The most difficult thing has already been said. And so there's nothing that somebody can say to me, another disciple, that hasn't already been said by the fact that I needed Jesus to die for me. And it creates the space for grace. It's messy. It's terribly messy. Oh my gosh, it's so messy, you guys. It's so complex. But that's the way forward. And that's how and if your neighbor needs you to deal with their speck, who do you need to deal with your log in your eye? He doesn't say it, but it's surely implied. He assumes that your neighbor needs you to deal with their speck. Who do you need to deal with the telephone pole in your eye? You need Jesus, first and foremost, and then you need your neighbor. We need each other. And this is how we move forward, which leads us to what Jesus says next that has puzzled interpreters for 2,000 years now, right? Verse 6. Don't give dogs what is sacred. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, the pigs may trample you under feet and then turn, I assume the dogs here, and tear you to pieces. Savage pigs tearing you to pieces. I guess there's boars, wild boars. That could be what he's referring to. So what? Okay, I thought Jesus said don't judge people. And now he's calling people pigs and dogs, because what's that all about? I think, so there's about 8 different views on what Jesus means here, whatever. And so I'll share with you the one that I think is right. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be wrong, right, about it. So this is a little parable that I think is similar in meaning to the first parable about the speck and the log and so on. And then the problem is that we want to read it as like an allegory, where everything has a symbol that represents someone else or whatever. And Jesus sometimes teaches in allegories. Most often he teaches in parables. And parables are little short stories that have a main point. And then it's the point that you take away. And actually, I think we get ourselves into trouble when we treat them like allegories. And we're like, what does the pig represent? And what's the pearl? And so on. I think, no, the point is just get the point of the story. You've got somebody who has something of great value to them. And they're so stoked on what this sacred, beautiful thing that's of value to them. And they want to share it with anybody and everybody. And there will arise situations where they're before someone or something that doesn't value what they value. So you have a pig. What does a pig value? Pearls? Pearls, right? So no, it'll end up in the mud. What is a dog? Dog owners. What will make your dog happy no matter what? No matter what you've done to it, instantly you make it happy. Treats, right? Food. What does your dog not care about? Pearls? What on earth, right? So it's about this disconnect between what you value and what these beings value. And it's very similar. Just like I can misjudge a situation and go barge in and like giving what I think about, what they're doing, when that's totally not appropriate yet. Here's another little parable about something that I value that's precious to me, but it's not at all perceived as valuable by the other. And so to barge in and be like, hey, here's this, you not only are not respecting the beauty of the thing that you hold so precious, but even more, like you might actually provoke the opposite reaction of what you're trying to get, right? What does a dog value? Food. What should you give it? Something appropriate to what it values, That's what I think is the idea. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am, right? Verse 6, which means this. What it means is that Jesus is encouraging wisdom for how we go about engaging each other, wisdom for where it's loving your neighbor as yourself. How would I want to be addressed in this situation? And it might be like some people come out guns blazing, just ready, like with the truth about Jesus' teachings or whatever, and that's just not going to accomplish what you want it to accomplish. So take a different tactic, like change how you address the situation. Otherwise, you risk provoking hostility when that's exactly the opposite thing of what you want to accomplish. And so in which case, it lands us both at the same place. How do you actually do this? How do you do this, you guys? I think for Door of Hope, I don't think our problem, for the most part, is that we are having these kinds of conversations too much. Right? I think our problem is the opposite, is that we crawl under the shade of verse 1. I guess Jesus said don't judge, and so I'm never going to say anything to anybody at all, right? And who am I, after all? And we misunderstand what Jesus is saying, because when I become someone who's being healed by the gospel, I actually can become a vehicle of Jesus' grace meeting someone else. But that's very complicated. How do you do that? And I'm not sure how you do that, but let me conclude with a story of how someone did that utterly changed my life and has at least given me one kind of compass point of a true north for how to go about these conversations. Let me show you a picture of a Wendy's restaurant on 82nd and Gleason. 82nd, Northeast Gleason. You know the Wendy's? You know it? Okay, most of you have probably never noticed it before, and that's fine. That's fine. When I drive by this Wendy's, it's Google Street View, by the way. So, when I drive by this Wendy's, I always notice it. It's utterly significant to me. And that's because in that very Wendy's, August 1995, I had a conversation in there over $1 value menu burger, whatever, if it was actually a burger, I'm not sure what it was, but I had a conversation over, a value menu deal that totally changed the trajectory of my life. And I was 19, and my parents are amazing followers of Jesus. I had said no thank you early on in my teens, and out of high school, no aspirations, low-paying job, loved it that way, living in parents' basement, skateboarding with all my time. There you go. That's Tim Mackie. And however, when I was 16 years old, I had started attending a skate park one night a week. It's called Skate Church. We talk about it a lot around here. And it's a skate park hosted by a number of Christians. They, shut down the park always midway through the evening, talk about Jesus, and then start the park up again. And it's rad. It's awesome. It's still going today. And I had been going because it was a dry place, for $2.50 to go skate every week. And so I had made a number of friends with a number of the guys who kind of helped run it and so on. So there's this one guy, Mike. He was about 5 years older than me. And I actually don't know why. We just became friends. And he was a really good skateboarder. I looked up to him a lot. And so we, over the course of those 3 years, we would hang out, we'd go skateboarding, same group of friends or whatever. And he got to know me. And I kind of, because I had grown up with Christian parents, I kind of knew the way to give off this vibe of like, I'm kind of like a Christian or whatever, and kind of say certain things and give those clue words or whatever. But I was doing whatever I wanted to do. And he got to know a number of my friends. And so he knew like how I was actually living, and he knew the kinds of decisions that I was making. And at that point, I was 19, and I had two very close friends of mine just go way off the rails into hardcore drug and alcohol abuse. And that was my community. Those were the people that I was around. And so he would catch wind of this through my friends, and he knew the kinds of decisions that I was starting to make. And so, God bless him, he took me out one night before, the skate park opened, and he bought me a 99-cent burger or whatever, and in a loving, caring way, he totally got in my face. He totally got in my face. And it was both uncomfortable because he knew stuff about me that I didn't know that he knew, But at the same way, not for 1 minute did I ever feel this. I never felt condemned by him. And he was just very clear. He was just like, dude, like I know gotten to know your heart. I know who you are. This is not you. You're making decisions. You're going to ruin your life, Tim. You're going to make some stupid decisions. You're going to ruin your life. You've been, dilly-dallying around it for years now. You need to make a decision about Jesus, whether you're going to follow him or not. You know what that involves. You need to make a decision, right? You need to make a decision now, or else you're never going to make it. And I don't know what to tell you, why that conversation over the course of 3 years of hanging out with those guys, but that conversation, it clicked. And that August afternoon, it totally changed the trajectory of my entire life. And why did I listen to Mike? Why did I listen to him? And it's a very simple principle, and we've talked about it in leadership circles around Door of Hope for a couple of years now. It's a very simple little principle, that truth requires a bridge. So you have this very profound truth of who Jesus is and his teachings, and how that addresses a very specific part of my life. That's heavy. That's a heavy load for anyone to take. And what that requires is a relational bridge that's strong enough to carry it, so that I can hear that, and I trust this person's credibility and their intentions and their motives in doing that. Truth requires a bridge. The heavier the load, right, the stronger the bridge that's required. And the problem is that we want to take these truckloads of Jesus' truth, and drive it over a little rope footbridge or something like that, right? And it's collusion and mess all over the place. And I'm a Christian today. Maybe I would have become one through some other means. I don't know how to play that out, but I am a Christian today because he pointed out the speck in my eye. Actually, it was quite a log. I don't know what size his was then in comparison to that. But there you go. And I think for many of us, it's actually the most difficult conversations with people that we know, love, and care about us that end up making the most significant differences in our lives. And so I want to just close and just encourage you. First of all, we're going to all advertise our need for Jesus by going to the tables, but I would encourage you in the time that lay ahead, what other disciples of Jesus have you intentionally invited into your life to point out stuff to you? And as you do that and make that invitation, then all of a sudden it creates bridges through which you're speaking into their lives isn't about crossing some line. It's just part of how we're growing together and building bridges into each other's lives. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of wisdom and grace, which is why Jesus talked about it. But we absolutely need each other. Absolutely, we need each other. It's precisely the blind spots in our lives that we cannot see was why we need each other so desperately. And so I'm going to close in prayer, and I just encourage you both to come to the table with a renewed sense of meaning and significance, and also to think about who the people in your lives are that you are doing this with. And if you don't have those people, to begin to pray that you would find those people and take initiative with them. Let me close in a word of prayer.
We absolutely need each other. We absolutely need each other. I don't think you could say that enough. I don't. It's something. Okay, so let's kind of cover a few things, because it'll be shorter in this when we get it, because I think Mackie covered some things so very, very, very well. Remember, the 2 or 3 are gathered scenario, statement, right, comes from another context. But it's an interesting thought, because you think, okay, what are they thinking? Because the first cursory glance on that is, okay, so does that mean if there's just you that Jesus isn't there or God's not there? How would that work? Okay, so let's take the original context audience into consideration. And again, the contextual understanding of the original audience is that God is a communal God. And they're scattered. They're in the diaspora. As that 2 or 3 gathered is a further down the road statement. And they're going, that challenge of where's God in all of this, and they're going, the community, like how small, it's 2 or 3 people, and God is amidst in that communal God thought process, and that's what they're addressing, the communal God thought process. Am I isolated or alone? If I'm isolated in a small deal, and they said no, that God's still there. So let's remember that in that context, because the other side of the fence is to take it, and you go, well, okay, so that means if 2 or 3 aren't there, where is he? I think we end up with a problem where it doesn't match. The stories don't match. Again, just something to chew on when you're thinking about the target audience. What would the original audience be thinking when that particular statement is said? Because that's grabbed us a couple of times, and I think that's kind of fun. I really enjoyed Tim's views at the end verse of this section. I know there's a bunch of stuff that he said in there that was great. I had never heard how Tim had addressed the pig swine, the swine dog scenario with the pearls. I've never heard it put that way, and I liked it. I liked it because technically it goes both ways. So if that's the scenario, if something is of value to you and it isn't of value to them, they're not going to respect it for what it is, okay? But understand, be honest, if something is of value to them, whoever they are, the person talking to us, we're the opposite side of that, where we're not respecting their deal. Do you understand that you can be the opposite side on somebody else's pearl? That stretches us a bit. Because again, like he said there, it's honoring who the other person is and what is of value to them. And what you have at that point is not value to them. At that, it's food or whatever, okay, in that scenario, and vice versa back the other way. And it really put that love your neighbor as yourself and those twists. It really draws more to think about. And I like that, especially because it's not an allegory. I'm not looking for who's who and what's what in that scenario. It's like the role that's being played out, the simple context of the parable. Like you said, the parables are parables. Listen to the parable. If you want to think about that, that's fine. That it draws more challenges, and it's very rabbinic in that scenario. But remember that basic deal is what they're understanding. They're not going, I wonder what that means as they twist their beards. I think they're trying to figure out how that value plays out in their lives there and then. Again, some interesting stuff too, and I had never heard it that way, and I kind of liked it. I did. So fun to say. Like Tim said, do I think I'm wrong? I could be. I don't think I am, but I could be. And I'd go, okay, it's safe enough to say, and the deal. But again, something fun. Skateboard story. I love this. That conversation, that point where you're having those conversations. Mike had gotten to know Tim for years, for 3 years, before he has this conversation. So one, he's aware of Tim. He has taken the time to invest time with Tim. Who is our Tim? If you have a Tim, okay? Who are you investing that time in to have these conversations? Like he said, it's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging. It takes time, it takes endurance, it takes patience, it takes understanding, it takes wisdom. So he spends 3 years before he has this conversation. And in that time, he spent his time, he's getting a glimpse into Tim. What's valuable to Tim? Skateboard's the conversation in that. So it came in the context of coming off of skateboarding. Probably, like I said, a burger at Wendy's after, right? It's a no condemnation but honest discussion. But life at the table first. This is what I'm looking to, is I want to try something, and that's to have people at my table. And I'm being literal more than figurative in that, to have people at my table, to invest in a relationship, to get to know people, and to get to know these people and find out what their lives are like, and do that. And we may find out we have a lot in common, or find out we have nothing in common. But investing in those lives, investing in that relationship, whatever they may be, as we grow and go with this. And what does this look like? It's something I have never done before. This is totally new to me and totally foreign, and it's going to be a challenge. And I'm willing to be called on it. So, in that sense, what does this look like down the road? And we'll look back over the year and see where the year's taken us in 2 years and 3 years, and how this plays out. That the truth requires a bridge. And it's that relationship bridge. We've heard this before, relationship bridge scenarios. That if before I bring something heavy to you, and vice versa, if there's no weight in that bridge, I've used the comment, the analogy many times, and I do it in soccer, and I call it in my vernacular, I think of it as a bank account. Okay, so I make deposits in your bank account. So the more I spend time with you, and we have this relationship, and we start to do this, I make deposits in your bank. Now, this is the way it worked very well in soccer, because the analogy works well in soccer. So I make these deposits where talking to you before the game even starts, to check out what's going on, how you doing, go over when you're talking with your wife or whatever, and I say hi, and get to know people and do that. Walk around being casual and friendly. On the field, helping people up when they're hurt, those kind of things, making deposits. Because eventually, I'm going to have to make a withdrawal. I'm going to have to put that bridge under pressure. I'm going to have to make a withdrawal. If I have something in the bank that makes that withdrawal, okay, you've made an investment. We can pull something out. We'll trade back and forth, right, in that. If I've made no investment, or I have a negative balance in that bank, we have more of a problem. I had a player that I tried to make deposits in, and I realized, I was the one to realize that it's not working, and this guy eventually, I was so deep in debt that no matter what I did, it wasn't going to be perceived as a deposit. And it just wasn't. There was so negative. And I get it. So sometimes that happens. It does. Sometimes that honestly happens. But if we're willing to take the time to spend... Now, this was just soccer pitch stuff, right? So all this analogy works very well on a soccer pitch. In life, I like Tim's bridge analogy. I really enjoyed that, building the bridge and reinforcing the bridge and making it stronger, because there's eventually going to have this conversation that's load bearing, that's going to test that bridge, that because this conversation can go two different ways. Flip it. It can do things that you don't, so you don't know. And in that stress, what are you going to do then? It creaks it, the bridge, and put in it, crack some beams, crack some cement, do some deals. You might have to step back, take some time, repair the bridge, and then have the conversation again. So I'll give you a hint. Hollering at somebody on a street corner, throwing things in their face, pointing at stuff, blowing up on Facebook, that's not from a bridge context. That's just throwing salvos over a wall. And I'll say salvos over a wall because neither knows the other one or has taken the time to even build a bridge. So there's just a wall there, and they're just firing salvos over the wall. I don't see that in Yeshua's life. I don't see that in Jesus's teachings and life. I see the opposite. Matter of fact, the entire opposite. So I think we have a challenge here. And again, with this, I just absolutely loved that that bridge analogy. Are we willing to open our tables, build bridges that are capable of having these kinds of conversations? Are we willing to invest the time to build these bridges? Or will we just rather sandwich board these truths, pearls, and possibly even do more damage? So what you hold valuable now is strewn about and thrown on the floor. And now somebody gets, then that thing of value really becomes a challenge when you're like, it's not important to them. They've made a choice, whatever that choice is, that you were open to building a relationship. Are you open to build a relationship? Well, I want to build a relationship with them. You go, that's interesting. Well, and again, that's fine. But I think we see that practice different watching that happen. I truly do. I see a very different life evidenced in Yeshua's life. And we see this, we hear this, we talk about this. The story of his life and the words that sometimes come out of churchanity's mouths don't match. It takes a lot of work, wisdom, and grace. Are we personally willing to invest ourselves in that? Do we really care about others enough to invest in them? Do I care about you enough to invest myself with you? That's a great question. That's the test that I want to try and push myself towards. Something I've never done before. I'm known for knowing everybody and knowing nobody. That bank analogy deposit, it works great on a soccer pitch. And it does. It works great on a soccer pitch. I knew literally thousands of people in the Charleston area. Thousands of people. I was rock and roll Bob. My friends, maybe two hands. Using the way we've talked about friends over this time frame, maybe. And it's a little scary. None, long term. I heard some posts on Facebook when it was, friends you've known more than 20 years or something. And I'm going, Gads, my brother and I are building a relationship back again. But to be honest, to have that relationship years of that, I have less than that. And I'm 60. Okay? So this is new territory for me as well as I try to put this life into practice. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't. It scares me a little bit. I don't know. Or we'd rather just, right, I wrote this down too. Or we'd rather just scare them into God, turn or burn, hellfire, brimstone, no relationship required there. That I'm just going to scare you into Jesus. Kind of like the prosperity gospel that's eventually going to fail. And we have problems with it. And it does more to damage the character of God. We, in our words, speaking out, are doing more to damage the character of God than we realize. And then we have to work on recovering character. Another note I have up here. Recovering character. And getting that back. I loved Tim's comments. We absolutely need each other. That is the kingdom community that Jesus or Yeshua was building here in Matthew. And expects us to try and represent and build within our personal lives and communities these bridges. And if we do that, I think it takes us somewhere. I think we have the opportunity to go places that no man has gone before. Okay. That said, I thought this was interesting. One, another little side note, and you can rewind to go look at or listen to the other thing on the deal. Did you notice, for fun, especially for the Torah people that enjoy this. Did you notice the menorah on the table? Interesting. Made me smile. It did. Okay. That said, so the Bible Project guys have made an announcement in the last week or so about a new venture that they're getting ready to launch the beginning of the new year. And I found it wonderfully intriguing, and I want to share that same announcement. And then we'll talk a little about what the elements inside that announcement a bit, just for a few moments, then we'll wrap this up. But I like this. I found it, one, very encouraging, two, something I'm looking forward to. And we'll see what it has to offer. So enjoy this announcement from the Bible Project folks, Tim Mackie and John Collins, and the Bible Project team.
Hey, I'm John.
And I'm Tim.
And for the last 7 years here at Bible Project, we've been making content to experience the Bible as a unified story that leads to Jesus. And we've been making it alongside you. And we're excited to announce that now we've also become a tech company.
We're excited to share with you some of the tech products we're going to be releasing next year. We got a chance to sit down with people on our team and reminisce about the last 7 years and also dream about the next 7 years. We want to share this conversation with all of you.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, John.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Tim, I've always wanted the opportunity to ask you in person. Please tell us the story of how Bible Project came to be. How did you begin your adventure?
Yeah, well, I mean, it actually began a long time ago. John and I met each other in college, and I had just been following Jesus for a couple years, and he changed my life when I began to follow and live by his teachings. And so I'd never read the Bible at any length. And I would actually get puzzled by like half of what he said. I was like, I have no clue what he's talking about. But I did notice, one, I was amazed by how he treated everybody he came into contact with. But also he was constantly talking about the rest of the book that I had tried to read, the first 3 quarters, but it was like really struggling. But like for Jesus, it was really clear that who he was and was presenting himself to be only made sense in light of this whole book that I was finding really challenging to read. And so all of a sudden I got motivated to sign up for classes at a Bible college that was real close to where I lived, and it happened to be where John ended up too. And man, I just was introduced to the Bible in my first couple years of reading it as beautiful literature in my how to read biblical literature classes, sophisticated literary art, ancient Israelite and Jewish context, and I just couldn't get enough. And what was great was that it was like mutually reinforcing, where the more I gained tools for understanding biblical literature, the more Jesus became more beautiful to me, and I just couldn't get enough. So I became a professional student for the next 14 years. And John and I, as our friendship was beginning, we would just have great conversations. He's such a persistent question asker. And so I just have great memories of having really formative conversations about the Bible with John. And that's kind of how our friendship began.
I was very committed to Jesus, but was giving up on the Bible. Just was really confusing.
Wow.
And Tim was the kind of guy who I could ask the questions I had and felt like I was getting really interesting answers, but also I was getting even more interesting questions than the questions I was asking. And so Tim just started to show me that the Bible had this literary design and shape that really began to open it up for me. And I had a background in making explainer videos, so I thought it would be cool to try to explain the Bible this way.
For me, again, in those early years of learning how to read the Bible, I could both see how Jesus thought of the rest of the Bible, and I was being taught to read it in a way that was more in tune with how he and those early Jewish Messianic Christian communities read the Bible. You know, they encountered these texts much more like the way we encounter a piece of music or like a symphony. And so learning how to track with repeated words and patterns and images that unify all of these biblical books together into, it's our mission statement, to experience the Bible as a unified story that leads to Jesus.
I've known you for a while, Tim, and I've never heard that symphony example or illustration, and I love that because I think my experience with the Bible was more like a lot of random notes, like things I should do or not do, as opposed to this beautiful symphony.
Yeah. A symphony is a good metaphor too, because anybody can sit down and appreciate a piece of music, but somebody who's hearing it for the first time or for the 700th time, there's still more layers and sophistication to it. So our shorthand has become, we want to help people experience the Bible as a unified story that leads to Jesus. But underneath that is really a whole approach and a way of thinking about biblical literature.
I think it's going to be intimidating at first, but what I've noticed is when you sit down in a classroom setting or in the podcast and people are listening or in a video, it just starts clicking. And then people get really hungry to dive deeper and see the literary structure and beauty. So there's a lot of complexity there, but it's very inviting, like a good piece of art is inviting.
Yeah.
I like it because it's a group of people stewarding the moment that they have, what is available to them at that time, and that's what's so exciting to me about this, is it's like never before in human history have we had this moment and this ability to reach so many with this project.
One thing that's exciting to me is that even though we're able to use new technology platforms, the way that we're inviting people to learn how to read and engage the Bible is not new at all. We're trying to recover a more ancient and original form for how these texts were designed to be experienced by followers of Jesus.
The next piece of this for us, at least a really big piece that we're excited about, is a BibleProject app that we've built that we're excited for you to download and use. It's a great way to get access to our resources with an interactive viewer for our videos, interactive podcast that'll sync you up with a Bible reader. So when you're reading the Bible, you can access our resources. When you're in our resources, you can access the Bible. But the other part of it, which is actually more exciting, is we're trying to figure out how do you learn to read the Bible as you're reading the Bible. So that part of the app is what we're calling skills and journeys.
Yeah, one of the things we're really excited about is to help people learn these really ancient skills for how to read the Bible, but we want to help you learn these skills by actually just reading through the Bible yourself. So we're crafting this 1-year journey where we're going to invite people to read through the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. Just 5 books.
That's a pace I can get behind.
And what we're going to build into it is this interactive experience where you're going to be tracing key repeated patterns and words and images to begin to see how the notes and the melodies repeat and recycle as you read through the Torah. And by the end of it, we hope you'll be able to actually engage the Bible in whole new ways that you wouldn't have been able to do a year before. And so there'll be other things that are featured in the app, but that's a main event that we're really excited to introduce.
We actually have it's been a bit of a secret piece of technology that we've had. That's a deep dive if you really want to crack open these skills for yourself. And we've been calling it Classroom. It's been in beta for the last couple of years. And actually, Aaron, you've been running this product, and it's awesome. just give us a few little things in there if you want to dive into the beta.
Yeah, totally. How I like to think about it, even in relation to the app, is that on the app, we're mapping out a journey for you, and we're gonna be your guide. So we're gonna highlight videos for you to watch when you're reading something, we're gonna highlight words, and you're gonna see that. But it begs the question, how did we become guides? And what if someone wants to become a guide? And Classroom is kind of our response to that. Following the legacy of biblical education, we've built this online learning platform. We have classes actually currently available, and we're gonna be adding a lot more. And really our heart there is how do we create this really accessible, free, online system where people can, learn to be guides of Scripture.
I was really thankful to take Classroom because I had the unexpected outcome of feeling confident as a father teaching my children the Bible. It hadn't occurred to me just how few tools I had to read the Bible on my own, as opposed to just having to soak in a lot of other teachers so that I could re-express them, as opposed to being someone who had the ability to step in with my son here and my daughter next to me and my 3-year-old running around to say like, hey guys, let's read Bible. And to have reshaped what it means for me to be a spiritual leader in my home is something I never saw coming.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I also took the class with my husband. We've been longtime fans, right? And have watched all the videos. And in particular, I think with the video on Jewish meditation literature, I just remember seeing that and being like, that's great, but that's not our context. And that's not how we really engage with the scriptures. And I wonder what that would be like. And I think really being immersed in the text through Classroom gave me a window into seeing what that could be like. It taught me how to meditate. It taught me how to see, how to read it in the context of the larger story, and then how to live in that story.
So come on this journey with us. Download the Bible Project app. Thank you for being a part of this with us.
So there's a bunch. A group of people stewarding the moment they have, what is available to them at that time. Never before in human history have we had this moment and this ability to reach so many. That's one of those big things that I want to do, is that this is the time that I've been created for to steward. So how am I stewarding that time? Interesting, and I really like that. The way we are inviting people to learn how to read and engage the Bible is not new at all. We are trying to recover a more ancient and original form for how these texts were designed to be experienced by followers of Jesus. And it's, again, that storytelling environment. We're really getting into the immersive. It's a communal learning. It's just different ways to grasp it. I mentioned this before. I think we've lost the art of memory and storytelling to be able to pass that on to ensure that the generation, not only the next generation, but the one after, gets the story. And we've lost that art of doing that. And maybe this will help recover that. The first big project is a walk through the Torah, a 1-year journey. Sounds like a Torah study to me, doesn't it? For those that are Torah observant on this with Dusty, sounds like that, doesn't it? So I'm interested to follow it and see what is how that's going to play out. I really am interested to hear and see. And again, I know how Tim attacks these things because we've seen this in the other wings, how they're going to approach these particular Torah portions. I don't know how they're going to break them out, but 1 year with the Torah, it sounds like maybe you're going to even stick to the portions. Ought to be interesting to see how that plays out. And building into an interactive experience where you're going to be tracing key repeated patterns and words and images to begin to see how the notes and the melodies repeat and recycle as I read through the Torah. I love the symphony analogy, which we'll take and run with our heart expressions, right? We're talking about heart expressions, and Jim Achilles, and that we'll get to see more of him in the new year as well. And we'll engage in that and listen maybe to other notes and songs and melodies that become symphonies, that play into the symphony that is Scripture from beginning to end, from Genesis to Revelation and beyond, meaning to our time and our space. And I love that their classrooms are just going to give people the opportunity to dive deeper. If you ever get on their mailing list and do stuff, they'll have that little short clip video that they'll teach. Then they'll ask you to meditate and think about something, do some study, and then they'll offer classes to dive deeper, or people to get to dive deeper. So they're encouraging this cycle of starting new and then getting a little deeper and digging a little deeper. And then you're going to learn a new subject. And you're going to start at the beginning with an interest, and you get a little deeper and you get a little deeper. And our lives work in this cyclic pattern. You can't lose here. You can't lose. And that's what we like to do with Dusty. That's why we're going over the stuff that we go over, because let's go over it again. Let's start and see where it takes us deeper, if it does, which it does. And then where we're going to see it again in a year. You know, it's interesting to see. So I hope you enjoyed those, with the conclusion of To Judge or not To Judge, and that little clip with that, again, with the menorah on that and the Torah portions. I just find it interesting that Hebrew culture, that is the Semitic culture of Scripture, and the context that it's in, is part of the symphony that's going to help us start to, as we hear it again, the complexity of the notes, the complexity of the deal. I want to get to a point, like in a symphony, you'll hear that, and there's a point in the movie where somebody was not, like the bassoonist, and they were complaining that they heard a sour bassoon, and I'm like, I would know a sour bassoon if I heard it. I'm deaf, or half deaf, but on that point. But I want to be able to get to the point with this where those subtleties, where you get to notice those nuances, those things that make you uncomfortable, those things that challenge, and I love that opportunity. So hopefully we'll continue to do this. So next week won't be. So I'll be sure to put the announcement on Twitter too. Put it on the Facebook, on our website page, that to next won't be. We should have the week after that. I have all intentions of doing that. So when we do, we're going to have our guest. I said long-time listener, first-time caller, which would be a ton of fun. So let's leave us real quick here now with our point to ponder. And I thought this was interesting, and it spoke to me. Love others so radically that they wonder why. Why are you doing this? Why do you care? Why do you say you love me? And I know that's what Jesus got asked. Maybe we can learn to reflect the same. Thanks for being with us tonight on The Dusty Feet.